All right, here we are with another whiskey experiment. Again, I have to stress I am not a professional whiskey drinker. I'm just exploring these things. The last time I tried Aberlour, I pronounced it incorrectly. It's called Aberlour. And I actually didn't give it that great of a review. But when I've thought about it over time, it's probably because of my inexperience, and I think it actually does taste very good. So I'm going to try this again. Now, on YouTube they suggested getting Lot 40 rye whiskey from Canada. I live in Canada, and so I got Lot 40, but this is the 40% alcohol, 43% alcohol version, and not the cask strength. Cask strength is closer to 60. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Canadian Rye Whisky. So Canadian Rye Whisky, I had to Wikipedia this. The Canadian Rye Whisky is a type of, Rye Whisky, Canadian Rye Whisky can only be called Canadian Rye Whisky if it is mashed and distilled in Canada. It has to be placed in small barrels for at least 3 years, and it can contain flavorings and colorings. So that in fact makes it a little bit dubious in terms of its quality. However, there's also a stipulation that it should be like other Canadian whiskies, so there is some limiting factor with that. Lot 40 rye whiskey, 43% alcohol. I want to go back to the Aberlour and try that again because of perhaps my misidentification of the quality. Just going to try and compare these two. There we go. The Aberlour. The Aberlour. Well, it's still, like my last review, it still tastes interesting from the flavor aspect, that it appears to me a little bit sour. And I do notice more flavors in here than I did before. Specifically around sort of the standard whiskey flavor that you'd expect. It's very good. Right, here we're going to try the Canadian Lot 40 whiskey. Rye. What is rye? They add rye to the whiskey to add a better flavor to it, and therefore it is called rye. And in Canada, apparently, according to Wikipedia, they use corn mainly for the starch because it's relatively cheap. But they do have rye whiskeys. As to the percentage of rye, most Canadian whiskeys are blended. Let me see. I'll just read this quickly, so just to make sure I have it right. The whiskey must be mashed, distilled, and aged in Canada, be aged in small wood for no less than 3 years, and contain no less than 40% alcohol by volume. They may contain caramel and flavoring. Within these parameters, Canadian whiskies can vary considerably, especially with the allowance of flavoring, though the additional requirement that they possess the aroma, taste, and character generally attributed to Canadian whiskey can act as a limiting factor. Canadian whiskey are most typically blends. They're blended whiskeys made from single grain, principally corn and rye, but also sometimes wheat or barley. Mash bills of multiple grains may also be used for some flavoring whiskeys. So the availability of inexpensive corn with the higher proportion of usable starches relative to other cereal grains has led to the typical use to create the base whiskeys to which flavoring whiskeys are blended in. So as the base whiskey is going to be made from corn, I would suspect that this is crafted in small batches using rye grain in a single copper pot, still, and aged in virgin oak barrels. This bold whiskey has been perfected through generations of master distillers. This is Canadian Rye Whisky in its simplest form. So, we're talking about simple rye whiskey, not cask strength. Let's smell. It has a very light smell to it on the cork. Color. It's very similar to the Abelauer color. It's a dark. Color is very important for flavor, isn't it? And it gives you some sort of warmth feeling, for me, anyways. The color is, if it had no color at all, which I guess would be, it could have the same flavor even without coloring. It wouldn't taste the same to me. So let's smell. You know what it smells like? It smells like an old library book. It has a very light smell, interesting, quite pleasant and friendly. Yeah, I suppose that's what rye smells like, kind of musty paper smell. With a little, there's a hint of cherry flavor or smell in there as well. Interesting, because I guess I'm starting to become better at smelling these things. Let's try. Oh, got it down the wrong windpipe there. Okay. Well, let's try that again because I was coughing. Wow, that's exceptionally smooth. It's lively. It feels almost like young fun to me, as opposed to these other ones. The Lot 40 tastes. Oops, spilt it. It tastes. It tastes like the barrel had maybe the barrel. It tastes like an older room. It's musty for sure. It's very unique. Really makes me feel like I'm in an old lounge chair, and the smell off an old couch with books surrounding me. I feel like I'm in a library at university. It's a very smooth alcohol. I definitely don't need any water, or in my case, doesn't require any sort of additional fillers at all. And it's very pleasant to drink. Although it doesn't have as many tones as the Abelauer does. It's very good. I think that's the rye flavor. The rye flavor tastes like, tastes like the rye. And that is the flavor that I'm experiencing that captures my imagination to think that I'm drinking something musty. So I like it. I think it's interesting. I'm actually proud of Canadians to be able to create something like this. I'm surprised. So give it a try. And here it is, the Lot 40 Rye Whisky. Lot 40. As I said before, it tastes musty, interesting. It makes me feel like I'm in Canada. It does taste like Canada. Simple. That's Canada. Simple. Yet honest, I suppose. The society is very similar to that. Maybe these alcohols are representative of the land and society that we live in. It's a smooth, sort of singular dimensional, tastes like rye, tastes like the grain, tastes like I should be a farmer, a simple farmer. I highly recommend the Lot 40 Rye Whiskey. Enjoy while you are having a good time in Canada. Cold country, come here and try the rye whiskey, and try to think about our country when you try the Lot 40 Rye Whiskey.